Hello everyone, my name is Ian Garcia, this is Devotional Criticism, and welcome back to the New Movie Diary. This is a cinema criticism series in which I review recent, new, and up-and-coming film releases and attempt to give you the straight facts about them, in my humble opinion. And my humble opinion is that Captain America 4 sucks. Alright, I'm gonna wrap it up there. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like, share, subscribe, bell, yada yada. My name is Ian Garcia, this is Devotional Criticism, and this was the New Movie Diary. I'm gonna catch you guys next time. Oh no. No. I am not doing this again. I'm not wasting my breath reviewing another one of these crap show designed by committee, hollow, shoddy comic book superhero movies and act like there's any particular insight I'm gonna be able to give anybody about why this movie was gonna suck when all of the people who aren't already lined up like cattle to the psychic slaughterhouse in droves already know in their heart of hearts, baked into their DNA, that, yeah, I know this movie sucks without seeing a minute of it because it's Captain America 4. It is the fourth film in the ostensive Captain America franchise, originally starring Chris Evans as the titular Captain America, real name Stan Rogers, now with that title being officially foisted upon Sam Wilson, the D-list superhero formerly known as the Falcon, which thus also means we've officially reached the point in this ostensive franchise where they couldn't pay Chris Evans all the money in the world to hit the Hollywood upstairs dehydration gym 6 times a week and only eat bleached white chicken strips just to stand in front of a green screen for 8 hours a day. So we've officially reached the point in this ostensive franchise, which is even a little early as far as franchises tend to get to this point, where the big actor pinning down the role won't come back, and so you just have to hang the carcass of this thing from meat hooks and let whatever little droplets of blood fall all over the gut and smeared floor and try to slot a new guy into a follow-up spin-off. Except this is also, besides being the fourth Captain America movie, it is also the 35th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the globe-bestriding colossus of interconnected Marvel live-action comic book superhero movies that started nearly 16 years ago when I was still in high school, on top of also apparently being a direct continuation of a TV miniseries. And you know what? I don't have time for all this shit. I've seen some of the Marvel movies. I've even liked some of the Marvel movies, but in the last 16 years from when this bullcrap started all the way to where I am now as a grown man, I have not had a spare enough series of moments to accommodate the absolute tidal wave of genetically predictable bullshit that the major studios, with the House of Mouse as the satanic palace sitting at the center of it all, has made of our commercial cinema. And I get it. I'm getting way too hot under the collar for what is, at the end of the day, a movie for dumb kids and teenagers. These are movies for children. You get it, I get it, and if we're really thinking like the adults we should be at this point in our lives, and not like the arrested teenagers who got hooked on this crap at pubescent birth, we're going to have to start there. That what really matters at the end of the day is not my reaction when I was jetting out of my seat to leave Captain America 4 as quickly as possible, which I only saw that movie exclusively to justify that I am willing to go outside of my comfort zone and try my best to seriously review more mainstream movies so that I can then justify turning my attention and saying to you, hey, maybe go watch a movie like From Ground Zero instead. What really matters at the end of the day is what I heard before jetting out of that theater, which was just a nice little girl sitting behind me in the theater seeing this long, dumb superhero comic book movie who, after the credits started to roll, immediately piped up to her mommy in her bright little voice and said, I liked that. So let me be absolutely clear here. I am not offended that I, as a grown man was bored by a comic book superhero movie. I am mad because even as a film for children, by the standard that I think we should all hold filmmakers to in terms of catering to children, that important generation coming after us, Captain America 4 is hollow, shoddy crap that talks down to them, that it is cynical and condescending to even the basic pretense that kids deserve good movies that are good, not because they will understand or have a developed sense of their own taste as to why it's good, but because they deserve good things before we think they're ready to understand what makes something good or bad. And for $180 million, Captain America 4 f***ing sucks, even as a dumb kid and teenager movie. It doesn't just f***ing suck in a bog standard mediocre way. It sucks in a, this cost $180 million, and even if we are being the most tolerant about a boilerplate, phoned-in screenplay with the most phony and hollow gestures at characterization and establishing an emotional arc to the story that isn't just spectacle-based, which, by the way, is what we should all want for movies for kids. Besides that, it cost $180 million and it looks like rushed, shoddy crap. Kings of schlock like Paul W.S. Anderson have made more technically entertaining movies out of crappier scripts and premises, and for a fraction of this cost. Actually, scratch that. I'm sorry, even Paul W.S. Anderson has never written or directed a movie with a script nearly as bad as Captain America 4. And I'm not calling it Brave New World. I'm not doing it, even though this movie has the audacity, the unmitigated gall to do the thing where they don't even put the title as Captain America Brave New World, they just put it as Brave New World, like some kind of statement on how this direct follow-up to a TV miniseries, the fourth spin-off sequel of Captain America, and the 35th entry in an ongoing franchise. Oh no, really, consider it on its own as a self-contained film and popular artistic statement. Here's how insulting to the intelligence that one small move signals to the audience, not just in terms of the incompetency, but the absolute vanity of the people who made this movie is. This movie requires, as a basic foundation of the plot, that you at least be made aware in the most vacuous and shoehorned ways possible that not only major plot points, but major characters in this film aren't going to be comprehensible without the Incredible Hulk, a mediocre garbage movie that even most MCU fans acknowledge is a mediocre garbage movie that has lived eternally in the shadow of the MCU movies that people ended up actually liking, that determined the entire aesthetic and tonal trajectory of the franchise. And again, a movie that came out nearly 16 years ago when I was a senior in high school. Yeah, this is a real brave new world we're forging ahead with. You cynical cowards. Here's a question. Why did you even bother? Is it really so important to the stability of the ongoing franchise that you have to tie your script to a movie so old that even the most diehard MCU fans consistently swipe left on and skip over it? Is it really so important that you have to tie this Brave New World to a standalone Hulk movie so old that you have to constantly reiterate plot points from that movie in your own? Right down to having so little confidence in your audience that you literally open your movie with Harrison Ford playing a major character who has to refer to his daughter Betty as Betty, my daughter, to a person who should already know who Betty is because you're that terrified over anybody in the audience going, who the hell is Betty? But that's really just scratching the surface of this catastrophe of a script, which features credited contributions by no less than 5 screenwriters, but with literally every bit of leaden dialogue sounds like nothing more or less than exactly what you might get if you were finally testing out some machine learning screenwriting software by feeding it with Wikipedia breakdowns of the MCU films and a broad treatment. This is a movie where characters riding in a limo will call attention to the fact that they're riding in a limo. Like, literally, as if you fed into ChatGPT, write a scene in which these characters are riding in a limo to an important event, and one of them is sad and nervous, and the others are trying to cheer him up. And the machine spits out a character saying, "Hey, cheer up, friend. Don't you see we're riding in a limo to a very important event?" I am only slightly exaggerating here. Here's just how god-awful and bad this script is, and how so astronomically obvious how bad it is that you can only surmise that this thing was released the way it was because of sheer incompetency or the most abhorrent kind of cynicism. There's a scene in which Anthony Mackie, our star, Sam Wilson, Captain America, says to one of his closest friends, "Why you always wearing that raggedy-ass sweatsuit?" And he's saying this to a man who runs a boxing gym. In his boxing gym, which is where we're introduced to him and is the only frame of reference we have for him. What the else would he be wearing? Something is off with this movie. Like, Kraven the Hunter was a bad movie. But this is worse. This is magnitudes worse just in terms of the fact that I am all but certain I just watched the first major studio film that was secretly written by AI and was only punched up a little after the production was already rolling. Which, of course, it already was. It's well known by now that a big part of the way Disney and Marvel have been able to corner the market on fantasy blockbusters is because they run production and post-production nearly simultaneously, which means they have to rush development, and especially on the post-production side, really crushing workers to turn around the product on time, despite often last-minute revisions to major plot and scene elements and reshoots. But man, when it comes to Captain America 4, even as somebody who has almost always found most of these comic book superhero movies boring, with little distinction between the unofficial Marvel films and the MCU everybody was astroturfed into loving so much, with Captain America 4, the chickens have really come home to roost. There are numerous parts of this movie where it's not only clear that the post-production was rushed, or that they did last-minute reshoots, but there are even numerous obvious editing gaffes. From a line of dialogue being dubbed over when you can clearly see that the actors aren't moving their lips, to a shot of a character on the phone cutting to a wider shot where he's put the phone down before we've actually seen him do it, to characters suddenly having props that were taken from them previously that we don't see how they got them back, to perhaps the worst of all, a very obvious reshoot green screen shot of Mackie in a major climactic speech in the film, where not only is the compositing terrible, and not only does the lighting of even the backdrop not match the original shoot, but even Mackie's hair doesn't match. Even when everything goes right in the most charitable terms, when Captain America 4 at least ascends to the heights of being this crass, disposable, campy B-movie that it should be playing into, it is demonstrative that Marvel's historical tactic of plucking out smaller-time directors to give them a shot at these big flagship franchise flicks, just so they can more easily control them, is also coming to bite them in the in a big way. In this case, the director of Captain America 4 is the Nigerian-American director Julius Ona, who has previously directed 3 films. First, his broadly mediocre neo-noir debut, The Girl Is in Trouble, then The Cloverfield Paradox, so at least he knows something about last-minute reshoots and changes, to the 2019 dramatic thriller Loose, which was actually a pretty good B-dramatic thriller, but if you're keeping score, besides maybe Cloverfield Paradox, my man has never directed a serious action-heavy movie, but we already know by now, even from numerous directors who have had nothing broadly negative to say about their experience making Marvel movies, this is exactly what they do. The movie isn't really in your control, you're a manager for hire, and according to the Argentinian filmmaker Lucrecia Martel, they'll even sometimes come to directors they think are promising and tell them to their faces, "Don't worry about the action scenes, we'll take care of that." And man, Julius Ona is getting a crash course in that this week, as all the people who even bother to show up for the Bourne legacy of the Captain America franchise sit through it and realize, Oh my God. The action in this action movie is fucking trash. It's terrible. You can excuse so much bad writing in an action movie as long as the choreography hits, right? But even the most competent action in this movie literally feels like the equivalent of when Disney in the 70s was hemorrhaging money, so they just started having animators reuse animation cycles from previous movies so they didn't have to do it all from scratch. Quite frankly, one of the first action sequences that Sam Wilson busts out for in this movie seems like it is literally a choreographic retread of the exact same action opening from the Age of Ultron. And let's just put as blunt a point on this as possible. I could absolutely extend this review to an hour by doing some patented discourse on the absolutely grotesque attempts to make this herky-jerky slop fit into Marvel's broader cynical agenda of making themselves appear like a socially progressive studio. But I'm not even going to dignify this monstrosity of a fake movie with that, except to say that in one of the many aspects of this movie that passes for some kind of character arc, it culminates in Anthony Mackie having to weather through multiple bromide-filled, insulting scenes in which he attests in this teary-eyed fashion to how hard it is to feel like you'll just never be good enough to measure up to what came before. Also, we can get to the obvious, just do your best. It's the fact that you inspire people that's the point. And it just becomes the final thudding nail in the coffin of this dreck that it should pay lip service to the significance of a black man being able to inhabit a traditionally white role in what is altogether clearly the sort of slapdash cheap shit that was actually just foisted onto two talented black men who should be doing better things. The real message of this movie is not that despite adversity, you can always be good enough to inspire people. The heartless, colonizing message of this movie is Disney stooping down over every marginalized person in America to talk down to them and say, if you want to get anywhere, if you want the super soldier serum, the juice only we can offer because we've monopolized the market, you're gonna have to dance around in the garbage for us and prove what you're willing to endure even when we give you not only not our best, but so much less than even what the average person thinks our worst could be. That's how bad this movie is, that it can't even just abide in being a runny turd squatted out to freeze on the pavement in the cold of February. It can't just be It also has to be, in the most shallow and cynical attempt to appear progressive, to be racist So trying to unplug myself from the rant before this gets too long for what this movie deserves at all, if we acknowledge that these movies are supposed to be for kids, you as a person who has kids maybe, you might be asking me, okay, so what the do you expect me to do with this Ian? Just like that little girl in your theater, my kid likes this crap, so what am I supposed to do? You know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to tell your kids when you think something sucks. And let me be clear here, I am not talking about controlling what your kids watch in a Puritan and authoritarian way. I am not talking about browbeating your kids with your opinions. I am not talking about dismissing what your kids like. I am talking about a phenomenon of a society that only seems to be getting aggressively worse at the same time as our media consumption and the culture around our media has only gotten more conflict averse. Just like the conditions of the Marvel slot machine have come home to roost in just how aggressively awful Captain America 4 is, the let people enjoy things propaganda has come home to roost in a generation of parents who, I don't know if you all remember growing up, but didn't your parents ever just be honest with you about not liking what you liked? Didn't you ever have a dad or a mom who, even if you really wanted to watch a movie with them, just straight up told you, nah, I'm not watching that, it looks like trash. It's fine if you like it, but when I signed up to be your parent enduring a bunch of kiddie bullcrap wasn't part of the deal. Or did any of you at least have the experience in relatively late childhood or young adulthood where your parents didn't just ask you what you liked about something and why, but were just honest and told you what and why they didn't like about something, because my mom and dad sure did. This isn't about adults making the very easy decision to not keep supporting this patronizing slop, which, if you're looking for a line in the sand to draw, God almighty, Captain America is practically a gift for those of us looking for an ultimatum to unplug from all of this altogether. This isn't about what adults choose to patronize or not patronize. It's about them not being passive with children. Letting them know that there is such a thing as objective good and bad from the perspective of growing up. From the perspective of growing up and learning about what taste is, so that with honestly very minimal input or obstruction on your part, you are literally just preparing your children to have standards at all. To grow with what they like, to be able to have some sense of when things are just not worth the time anymore. So that at least when in another 16 years, they won't have to endure movies as bad and cynical, and I'm gonna beat this drum again, racist as Captain America 4. Captain America 4, I'm giving it a sucks out of 5, and I am getting the out of here. Thank you so much for sitting through this whole video. Don't you dare sound off in the comments, because there's literally nothing anybody is going to tell me I was wrong about in terms of good qualities of this movie. But please do, for my labor of love, share, like, subscribe, bell, yada yada. My name is Ian Garcia. This is Devotional Criticism, and this was the New Movie Diary. I'm going to catch you guys next time. And with a real movie. God damn.